There's a certain kind of person who seems to suck the air out of the room the moment they walk in. They speak loudly, act larger than life, and constantly crave the spotlight. They demand to be seen, heard, admired. But here's what most people never say out loud. Underneath that performance is a vast, aching emptiness, and the moment someone calmly, quietly, begins to see through the mask, the game starts to shift. This is where Stoicism becomes a weaponless weapon. Calm, precise, unshakable. No screaming, no chaos, no power plays. Just presence, just posture, just control. Not over others, but over yourself. Most people avoid confrontation. They fear conflict. They think silence means weakness. But Stoic silence isn't retreat, it's strategy. While the narcissist shouts to keep the spotlight, you remain still. And in that stillness, you unbalance him completely. He expects applause, but instead he meets a mirror. And what he sees terrifies him. Because for the first time, it's not admiration, it's reflection. And he's not ready for that. The one who masters these techniques knows exactly where to strike, without lifting a finger. Yes, it's hard, especially when the person is a partner, someone you once loved. But with practice, you get stronger. It becomes a quiet kind of provocation, one the narcissist can't comprehend. He lives off chaos. He feeds on tension. And when he realizes the story he's been writing no longer includes you, he begins to unravel. The best part? You don't need to do anything dramatic. Just stay grounded. Just stand firm. Just become the kind of person who learned to guard their mind. The first real shift begins with emotional control. Sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful forces you have. When everyone else loses it, and you stay composed, that's when the manipulator starts to crack. The narcissist will test you, provoke you, try to get a reaction. But the moment he realizes you're not playing along, his sense of power begins to slip. Because without your reaction, he's powerless. Next comes strategic detachment. This doesn't mean disappearing. It's not about blocking or ghosting to make a statement. It's about being there but inaccessible. That throws him off. He sees you, but he can't reach you. He feels urgency, rejection, and he doesn't know how to handle either. When he senses you've stepped out of the cycle, his illusion collapses. Then there's the power of doubt, one of the most refined Stoic tools. Say less, explain less, defend less. The narcissist thrives on knowing what you feel, what you think, so he can control it. But when you stop giving him answers, when you stop letting him in, the silence becomes deafening. He fills it with fantasy, with fear, with paranoia, and slowly he loses grip, not just on you, but on the entire narrative. What's truly fascinating is this. The more grounded you become, the more he falls apart. Like a mirror flipped inside out. You're rebuilding from the inside. He's crumbling from the outside. Because he needs outside validation to exist. You don't. A Stoic stands alone, observes, understands, waits, and acts in ways that never look like attack, but leave undeniable impact. Here's the truth. These aren't weapons for destruction. They are shields, protection. Anyone who's been broken by a toxic relationship knows how hard it is to reclaim their center. Stoicism leads you back to it, not through shouting, revenge, or playing games, but through clarity. And above all, the courage to never fall into what once controlled you. When you think about it, this all works for one reason. A narcissist builds his identity on external validation. And when that disappears, so does his ego. Suddenly he asks, "Who am I?" And nothing answers back. He panics. He searches for new targets, but nothing satisfies, because what he had wasn't just control over you, it was control over the reality you shared. And when that crumbles, nothing else compares. Your silence, your calm presence, triggers something deep in him. The sense of loss. You're no longer available, no longer predictable, no longer bending. Everything he tries now fails. The pain of losing you isn't about love. It's about losing possession. And that hurts more than rejection. That bruises the ego. And his ego, though inflated, is more fragile than it looks. But perhaps the most powerful part is this. The moment you realize you no longer have anything to prove. You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to explain. A Stoic doesn't fight for the last word. They fight for peace. And in the narcissist's world, peace is the greatest insult, because it means the end of power, the end of control, the end of his influence. So mastering these Stoic tools isn't about beating him at his own game. It's about walking away from the game altogether. It's about refusing the rules he wrote and writing your own. And that, in itself, is the hardest blow you can deliver, without saying a single word. Maybe after the first part, you thought, all right, I get it. But what now? What if, even after all this, they still try to control me? This is the moment everything begins to turn. And not in the way you might expect, not through arguments, not through confrontations, but through stillness, through strength, and through something that completely disarms them, your indifference. Most people start to doubt themselves at this stage, because the narcissist knows how to play emotions like an instrument. Suddenly they're kind, apologetic, acting like someone completely new. But none of it is real. It's a last-ditch effort to pull you back in. And if you're not prepared, it can confuse you. But a mind grounded in Stoic awareness knows this is just another mask. And this is where your greatest weapon reveals itself. Emotional stillness. You don't play their game. You don't take the bait. You don't offer one word more than necessary. And that destroys them. Because they don't need answers. They need your reaction. And when you don't give it, they start to unravel. They think they know you. Think they've got you figured out. But when you shift, when you stop delivering the reactions they expect, their entire system falls apart. And now, the next move is yours. Strategic distance. You don't disappear. You stay. But you are unreachable. That's what breaks them. They can see you, but they can't touch you. The ground starts to slip from under their feet. The one who used to control the game now watches it collapse in real time. For them, it's terrifying. For you, it's freedom. One of the most powerful yet quietest tools you now possess is letting them wonder. Don't explain. Don't clarify. Don't justify why you stepped back. Just be different. By withholding answers, you force them to confront their own. And that drives them mad. Because a narcissist can't survive uncertainty. They need to know. And when they don't, they lose control. And here's the wildest part. The more solid you become, the more they disintegrate. The very thing that kept them afloat was your attention, your presence, your energy. When that's gone, they're left face to face with themselves. And that's the one thing they can't handle. But you build strength in that silence, in that space. That's where your new identity is forged, untouched, unshaken. At some point, they'll test you in a new way. They'll disappear, just to see if you'll chase them. They'll provoke, just to see if you still care. But if you've truly found your center, you won't respond. You're not waiting. You're not dancing to their rhythm. And that's when their panic sets in. Because they know the control is gone. They'll try to use others, spin the story, make you look like the problem. But this is where Stoicism shines brightest. Silence speaks the loudest. Let them talk. Let them perform. Your calm energy becomes the mirror they can't escape. One that reflects back who they really are. It's hard. Everything in you may want to scream the truth, to rip off the mask, to show them you see through it all now. But that's exactly what they want. Every outburst, every extra word, proof they still have a grip on you. But when you remain calm, that's the defeat they never expected. And then it happens. That shift. Inner freedom. You're no longer someone they can manipulate. You don't need closure, you don't need apologies, you just need peace, and you've built that peace yourself. In the silence, in that sacred space they no longer occupy, that's where your new version begins. Every step you take without reacting, every decision you make without their influence, every boundary you uphold quietly, these are the bricks of your liberation. And as you rebuild, they can only watch. That's the greatest consequence they'll ever face, knowing they'll never own a piece of you again. Maybe you're thinking, okay, I know what to do. But what if they keep coming back? What if they never let go? And that is exactly what narcissists do. They don't give up, not because they love you, but because they refuse to lose. For them, losing control is failure, and failure is unbearable. So they'll try everything, and the more peace you find, the more desperate they become, a shadow of who they once pretended to be. They'll soften, get quiet, try to look changed, but don't fall for it. It's just another phase of manipulation. Now they play the victim. Now they exaggerate pain, pretend vulnerability. They want you to believe they're broken, that you're the one who can save them. But if you believe it, the cycle starts all over again. This time, with new rules and deeper wounds. This is where another Stoic principle steps in. See clearly, without illusion. You don't need to forgive. You don't need to forget. You don't need to reconcile. You just need to see them for what they are. Narcissists follow a script. And once you've read the script, it loses power. It loses surprise. It loses control over you. People might say you're being cold, that you should rise above. But they haven't lived through a toxic relationship. They don't understand what it takes to rebuild from the inside. Let this be your truth. Your quiet boundary is your new beginning. And those who don't understand it aren't meant to guide your healing. And when the messages stop, when the calls fade, when the attempts to pull you back vanish, don't be fooled. It's not over. It's just the quiet before the next tactic. Because when words stop working, narcissists escalate. Now comes the social manipulation. They'll start talking to others, rewriting the story, painting you as the toxic one, and themselves as the victim. But this is where the Stoic stands tallest. Because silence is proof of power. You don't defend yourself. You don't explain. The people who truly know you, they know the truth. And those who believe the lies, they were never really in your corner. Let them go. It's not your job to fix the image the narcissist shattered. Your job is to protect the peace you fought so hard to rebuild. This phase can feel lonely. It might look like they're winning, all eyes on them, while you remain silent. But in reality, that silence is building your credibility. People start to notice, start to ask questions, start to doubt. And the narcissist? They're forced to reveal more. And the more they try to control the story, the more obvious it becomes. They no longer have one. This is a process, long and painful. But with every step where you choose peace over reaction, the power begins to shift. You're no longer the one who needs approval. You've become someone who understands themselves. And once you hold yourself firmly, you will never again be held by someone else. In that stillness, you start to attract a different world. People who sense your energy, your grounded presence, they begin to show up. Because inner balance is magnetic, and the narcissist knows it, watches from a distance, hates that they can no longer reach you. Because you've changed, and they no longer hold the key to who you've become. One day they might try again, send a message, reach out through someone else. They always do. But now, you know, no response is needed. Because real closure isn't found in the word goodbye, it's found in peace. And when nothing inside you wants to go back, that's true freedom. This is the beginning of your new chapter. No excess words, no drama, no games. Just you, your truth, and a world that no longer revolves around someone who once drained your light. You weren't born to be imprisoned in someone else's grasp. You were born to be free. You can live with the illusion of happiness next to a narcissist. You can fake a smile, play the part, but ask yourself, how long can you live like that? Yes, maybe they said they'd change, but a week later, the mask slips again, and it drains you emotionally until you're barely holding on. And what may surprise you is this. Even when the noise is gone, when the contact has ended, something inside you still feels tense. That's normal. After prolonged manipulation, the mind learns to anticipate the next hit. So when silence finally arrives, a new phase begins. The rebuilding of your inner space. At this point, it's no longer about them. It's about what they left behind. Thoughts, patterns, doubts, all the remnants that stayed even after they were gone. And here's where Stoicism enters, not as a weapon against them, but as a tool for you. This is no longer about fighting the narcissist. It's about fortifying yourself. One of the hardest truths to face is this. A part of you got used to the chaos. It became your normal. And when it leaves behind emptiness. But that emptiness isn't weakness. It's space. And space is power. Because what you choose to build in that space determines what your next chapter becomes. And you are writing that chapter now. It's easy to get lost in that stage. People around you may not understand. They think you're fine. They assume you've moved on. But inside, something's still shaking. That's the challenge. To keep healing, even when no one sees the wounds anymore. Only you know how deep they went. Only you know what it takes to heal them. This is where another Stoic truth emerges. Inner discipline. Not harsh, not rigid, but quiet, gentle, daily. It's the discipline to not return to what hurt you, to remind yourself why you walked away, to build a new life, not from anger, but from clarity. That's a kind of strength the narcissist will never understand, because it doesn't come from control. It grows from within. And as you keep moving forward, your thoughts begin to shift. You start noticing your attention is no longer fixated on them. It's centered on you, on your values, on your boundaries. And suddenly, you realize, peace isn't silence. Peace is a decision. And even when the memories come back, they no longer have the power they once held. When the narcissist sees they can't break you anymore, they'll try something else. Guilt. Subtle, quiet, calculated. They'll paint you as cold, harsh, unfeeling. And you might start to question yourself. Was I too much, too distant? But that's the trap. Because self-reflection isn't weakness, unless it turns into self-blame. You know what happened. You know why you had to protect yourself. The true turning point comes when you stop waiting for closure from them. Because it's never coming. And now, you don't even need it. Because everything you needed to hear, you've already told yourself. Everything you needed to understand, you've already realized. That's when your identity stops being built from pain and starts growing from healing. And here a new version of you is born. Not just someone who survived trauma, but someone who transformed it, who drew truth from it, who stood tall even when everything around them fell apart. And that strength? No one can take it. Not because someone handed it to you, but because now you know it's yours. This growth, it's not loud, it's not obvious at first glance, but you feel it in the way you wake up, in the way you no longer need to defend yourself, in how you stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth. Because now, you no longer need to hear it from the outside. And when you reach that place, where you are quiet, but grounded, calm, but not weak, where you no longer crave return, only growth, everything changes. Not them. You. And that is the greatest win. Not over them, but for you. Sometimes you wonder, how can someone say they love you, do all those things, and still expect you to pretend nothing happened, still demand affection? You have to be strong enough, not to break, but to stand to stand in peace. You might think that once peace arrives, everything else falls into place. But often, right when the noise fades and you finally find stillness, the next unexpected challenge appears. The narcissists return. Not loud, not direct, but slow, subtle, wrapped in innocence. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous, because it doesn't look like manipulation. It looks like a coincidence. They follow you again on social media, like old photos, send vague messages, appear in places you didn't expect, and you think, is that just random? It's not. It's a test round to see if you're really strong, to see if your new boundaries are real, and most of all, to see if you'll hold them, even when they show up wearing a different mask. This is when a Stoic mindset becomes essential, because not every return deserves your attention. A return is not an apology. It's not growth. It's another form of control, one they try when they feel you slipping out of their grip. Because when they realize they're losing you for good, they'll try to crawl back into your thoughts, your space, your life. You need to be prepared, because the return won't be grand. It'll be wrapped in concern, in a just wondering how you've been. But your response, or your lack of it, will decide whether that door stays closed or opens again. And you already know what's behind it. You don't want to go back. This moment is a test. Is your freedom real or temporary? Silence alone won't be enough anymore. Now it's about conscious choice. You don't respond, not because you're confused, but because you're clear. You know that replying would cost you what you fought so hard to earn, your peace. And right now, peace is your highest priority. The narcissist isn't searching for healing. They're searching for access. And when that access is cut off, they panic. They'll try to intimidate, plant doubt, accuse you of being cold, heartless, selfish. But now you know that's not true. Because the ability to feel is what made you protect yourself. And that protection isn't selfishness. It's healing in action. In this phase, memories may come back. Dreams. A quiet voice whispering, maybe, just maybe. But no, that's not your intuition. That's your old programming, a pattern, a reflex. And now you're rewriting your internal code. You don't soothe pain by going back anymore. You soothe it by staying with yourself. And this is where your energy begins to shift. People around you start to notice. You're calmer, not passive, just different, stronger, more aware. You no longer feel the urge to explain, to convince, to defend. You simply are, and that is a power no one can fake, a power you radiate. And that's what the narcissist cannot bear. Because now, the contrast is undeniable. They're still fighting, still scheming, still playing. But you're not playing anymore. You've left the arena, and that's why you're winning. Not because you defeated them, but because they no longer define you. At this point, you become a mirror. And once you understand that your worth was never based on how they saw you, but always on how you see yourself, the circle closes. There's no going back. You start to think, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I was too harsh. But that's not truth. That's a toxic nostalgia. And that is more than you ever had before. Somewhere out there, the narcissist might still be looking, still seeking admiration, still playing games, still repeating patterns you've long abandoned. But you're no longer part of that world. And that isn't a win over them. It's a win over who you had to be to survive them. No one may ever fully understand what it cost you. You may never be able to put it into words, but one thing is certain. Nothing will ever break you like it did before, because now you know. Peace isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of soul, untouched, unbothered, unreachable. And when you look back, yes, you'll see pain, but more than that, you'll see the strength that carried you all along. And that strength wasn't anger. It wasn't resistance. It was endurance. The quiet faith that you could stand, even without shouting. And now here you are, without words, but whole.